All right, let's get right into it. Have you ever noticed that the people who seem to make the biggest leaps forward are often the ones with the most, well, ordinary daily routines? Today, we're going to explore a kind of counterintuitive idea that the most powerful, life-changing habits are actually the most boring ones. So, are you tired of waiting around for that big lightning bolt of motivation? You know, the one that never seems to stick around for very long? If so, you're definitely not alone. We've all been there, caught in that frustrating loop of starting strong, only to fizzle out when the inspiration fades. It's just an exhausting way to try and make a change. But what if there's a better way? Psychology actually shows us that real, lasting change doesn't come from these huge emotional moments. Nope. It comes from small, consistent, and yeah, kind of unexciting behaviors. But the key is, they are totally backed by science.
Okay, so to really get how this all works, we need to pop the hood and look at the engine that powers these habits. Let's get into the actual science of how your brain changes. The big scientific idea behind all of this is something called neuroplasticity. And what that means is, every single time you repeat a behavior, you're not just going through the motions. You are literally rewiring your brain, making the neural pathways for that action stronger and stronger until it just becomes automatic.
And this is a perfect breakdown of how it works in the real world. This is the habit loop, made famous by Charles Duhigg. It's simple, right? There's a cue that triggers a routine, and that routine leads to a reward. The more you repeat this loop, the deeper you carve those neural pathways we just talked about, turning something that takes effort into something you do without even thinking.
All right, enough of the theory. Let's get practical and see how we can put this science to work. We're going to break down 6 really simple, repeatable habits, all grounded in these psychological principles that can absolutely transform your life from the inside out. First up, and it really doesn't get much more boring than this, just waking up at the same time, every single day. And yes, I'm talking about weekends too. The reason this is so incredibly powerful is that your brain loves, and I mean loves, rhythm and consistency. So here's why it's such a game changer. A consistent wake-up time keeps your body's internal clock, your circadian rhythm, stable. And this isn't just a nice idea. Research from Harvard Medical School directly links stable sleep patterns to better focus, better mood regulation, and way more consistent energy all day long. It's like a simple anchor for your entire day. Okay, habit number 2 is all about being strategic with your most precious resource, your mental energy. It's super simple. Just do your one most important task for the day before you do anything else. This whole idea is based on research from the psychologist Roy Baumeister. He showed that our willpower isn't endless. You should think of it like your phone's battery. It starts at 100% in the morning, and every little decision you make, what to wear, which email to check first, drains a bit of that battery.
So by knocking out your most important task first, you're using your willpower when it's at its absolute peak. This doesn't just guarantee you make progress on what really matters, it also builds up your discipline and gets rid of that background stress of having a big task hanging over your head all day.
Our third habit brings us right back to that idea of neuroplasticity and the habit loop. The goal here isn't about being a hero, it's not about intensity, it's all about consistency. It's about turning effort into automatic behavior, just through pure repetition. And just look at how small we're talking here. We're not talking about running a marathon or writing a novel in one sitting. We're talking about reading just 10 pages, a 15-minute walk, a 5-minute meditation. These actions are so small that it's almost harder to make an excuse not to do them, you know? Next up is a habit that taps into a really fascinating quirk of our own psychology. The simple act of measuring what you're doing can all by itself improve what you're doing. It sounds too simple to be true, but it's incredibly effective. This is called the Hawthorne effect. Just by tracking your workouts, or your spending, or how much you study, you automatically become more aware. And when you're more aware, you have more control. And that, of course, leads to better results. It's like they say, what gets measured gets managed. Okay, habit number 5. This one is huge. It is a foundational skill for pretty much any kind of long-term success. It's all about resisting the urge for an immediate reward, so you can get a bigger, better reward later on. It's about playing the long game. You've probably heard of this one, the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment. The research showed that the kids who could resist eating one marshmallow right away in order to get 2 marshmallows later, well, they tended to have better life outcomes years later. Everything from higher test scores to better health. And really, this slide sums up the choice we all face every single day.
Do you go for the short-term pleasure or the long-term benefit? Every time you choose the long-term, you're not just making a smart choice. You're literally doing a rep for your patience muscle and your emotional regulation muscle.
And that brings us to our final habit, which tackles a very modern problem: mental fatigue. This one is all about strategically simplifying your life so you can protect your focus. The core problem here is something called cognitive overload. Just like we saw with willpower, our brains only have so much bandwidth for making good, high-quality decisions. When we burn that energy on trivial choices, we have less in the tank for the ones that really matter.
This is exactly why you hear about really successful people eating the same breakfast every day or wearing a similar outfit. It's not because they're boring, it's because they're being strategic. By simplifying things like meals and clothes, they're saving their precious mental energy for the big, important stuff. So we've gone through all 6 habits. What's the big takeaway here? At the end of the day, it's all about understanding the quiet, almost invisible power of consistency over intensity. And let's be really clear about this. None of these habits are glamorous. You're not going to post on social media about waking up at the same time every day. They don't make for exciting stories. But the psychology is clear. They just work. Real, lasting change is a quiet, internal process that's built on repetition, structure, and a little bit of self-control, day in and day out. And all of that leaves us with just one final critical question for you. Don't think about trying to overhaul your entire life overnight. Just think about one thing. What is the one boring habit that you can start tomorrow?